So we found out about, I guess it's now a couple of weeks ago, maybe a little longer than that, Quebec announcing that they're going to be cutting the money they give schools, education in this province. And it comes to, depending on who you believe, about $570 million, although some have suggested it's probably closer to $1 billion by the time you add everything up. Now, that story, and it's interesting because the education minister, Bernard Dranville, has maintained this position that, well, you know what, it's not really a cut. It's just we were giving you 7% before, we're giving you 5% now, so don't look at it that way. And ignoring the fact, of course, that without that money, programs would have to be cut. That apparently doesn't seem to enter into his, arithmetic. Now we're finding out that reaction to this, and you can imagine at the beginning, reaction pretty severe against this idea. Schools being caught kind of they were blindsided, basically, finding out literally at the last minute that this was going to happen. There's now a coalition that's growing. There's a petition with nearly 150,000 signatures. And if I heard right this morning, this may be the second most popular petition ever signed by Quebecers to get something to change. I think the first one involved Jean Charest, so going back a long time ago. But this one is asking the government to walk this back. It simply does not make sense. And there are various groups that have signed on. One is the EMSB. Joe Ortona, of course, is chair of the English Montreal School Board, and he's president of the Quebec English School Board Association as well. He's on the line. Joe, thanks for coming back.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I remember I sort of reached out a couple of weeks ago saying, can we, quantify or give an idea of where exactly these cuts are going to happen? And I think the answer was, well, look, let's see. We just got hit with this. So before I even get to the petition, if this does not get rescinded, revoked, however we want to phrase it, what will have to be cut in as far as the schools are concerned in the EMSB?
Well, you already saw one French adult education center had to shut down in Quebec. The cuts are going to be severe, and they're going to be across the board. And we've already been given preliminary figures at the EMSB, and it's the same at all the other school boards and service centers. If the entire head office was shut down, we would not meet the targets that the government is forcing us to meet. If we shut down the head office and we cut all of the heating in the winter months, we still would not meet the targets that the government is asking us to meet. It's absolutely absurd.
Okay. That kind of really sends the message across in terms of, what you'd have to do. But until this changes, if it changes, what's going to be the immediate reaction in terms of jobs you have to cut or positions you have to get rid of? How would that work?
Well, that's the thing. The government, due to their incompetence, have put us in this limbo situation. We can't cut jobs. We've already staffed for next year. We do that in May. And we do that based on the collective agreements that are negotiated between the unions and the government of Quebec. They're the ones who came in June after everybody staffed and said, "Oh, by the way, you need to cut 20 million, you need to cut 10 million, you need to cut 28 million." And we're sitting there going, how are we supposed to do that? We can't. We're going to be left with a ton of union groups that would grieve for illegal dismissals. And what would come of that? The government says, well, if there's any grievances, you guys are the employers, so you would be responsible. They've put us in an insane situation that we can't get out of, all because of their incompetence and mismanagement in, handling people's taxpayer money.
So the government is washing its hands of this. In other words, it's your problem. You figure it out. Don't come back to us for any kind of help.
Essentially, I'm not embellishing in any way. You've heard what they've said. It's up to you guys to figure out where to cut. It's up to you guys to do it, and don't cut in any services. But it's not like we have these big bloated bureaucracies, unlike the Ministry of Education, where we can just cut in 47 different areas and nothing's going to be cut in the classroom. Everything that we do is to provide services to the kids in the classroom, either directly with teachers and tutors or indirectly with support programs and things like mental health and tablets and all of the other services that we provide.
It's interesting. You just mentioned a minute ago, right, with respect to unions, you have signed contracts. They have to be honored. But I understand in this, if this coalition, as it's growing, these unions are on board with you, right?
Yeah, and we're really proud of this. I mean, we wish we didn't have to be in such a situation, but when you see employers and unions coming together, I think it really sends a strong message here. And the message is the government of Quebec is being very short-sighted, and they're making not only the wrong decision, but a decision that would have just a detrimental impact on the kids today. They're really jeopardizing the education of today's youth and putting this whole generation at risk. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this. Their incompetence from inheriting a $7 billion surplus and turning it into a $16 billion deficit, I mean, is just astounding. And rather than take responsibility for their mistakes, they're now putting it on the backs of the children and say, they're going to foot the bill for our incompetence.
So I would ask where it goes from here. I said you got 150,000 signatures. I'm thinking now that this story is becoming public, that will continue to grow as well. Have you had any discussions with the ministry or the minister based on this signature and the fact that there's so many people who want the government to do away with this? Anything at all?
Well, they've stayed firm on two fronts. Basically, the cuts, have to be met. The targets have to be met. And if you were, responsible and diligent in the way that you handled your finances in the previous years, and you accumulated a surplus as a result, well, you don't get to use that either to offset the costs of these cuts, which is completely ridiculous. They're staying firm on that, so we haven't been able to get them to budge. We're hoping that with other groups, which is why the QESBA joined, and became a member of this CSQ initiative there, Ensemble Unis pour nos écoles, that will get the government to backtrack. That's the hope. There's a petition going in the National Assembly, as you mentioned, that collected over 150,000 signatures. I implore everyone to please sign that petition and spread it to anyone that they know on social media and things like that. And write to your elected officials or call them. There is no better time than now to do that, and there is no better reason than this. Let them know that this is unacceptable, and if your M&A is with the CAQ, you let them know that this is unacceptable and that you don't stand for it. And if your M&A is in opposition, you let them know that it's unacceptable and that you expect them to do something about it and actually to fight for the vitality of the education system that we provide to the kids.
I just want to go back to something you said for people who might not have caught that. You're being told now that even if you ran your ship the right way and you managed to accumulate a surplus, that can't be touched now to make up for the cut in funding?
Correct. We have, there are several school boards and service centers too, by the way, who have accumulated surpluses that they then go into to use to provide extra services to, which can be used for all sorts of things. I mean, over the years, the EMSB has an accumulated surplus of $70 million. The government has always allowed us to go in and take 15% of that every year, which we do. We take the maximum amount because we want to be able to provide as many services as we possibly can. So we always use an extra, $8 or $9 million more than what the government allocates us as a budget, so that we can provide certain breakfast programs and extra curricular activities and provide tools that perhaps in other areas, other school boards wouldn't be able to provide otherwise. Well, we're now being told you're not allowed to do that anymore, which is absurd. Wow. That's our money. It belongs to us.
Look, it is absurd. That's a perfect word to use. So you get cut, and then by good sound management, you're told, sorry, that's not worth anything. You can't use that money at all. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. With respect to the petition, Joe, as I said, 150,000 signatures is significant. And as I said, I'm sure that with this story now becoming more and more public, and it's a big deal on the French side as well, which is a bonus, we're going to see more people do it. So I would urge you, as Joe just had, if you as a parent, as someone who's concerned about education, wants to go online, you'll find this on the government's National Assembly website, which is ASNAT, A-S-S-N-A-T, Assemblée Nationale, asnat.qc.ca. And Joe, what's the petition officially titled?
It's in French, but it's essentially petition calling on the government to reverse its cuts in education.
Okay. And you can find that there once you go onto the website, on the National Assembly's website. Joe, always appreciate your time, and hope that finally some kind of, semblance of normalcy comes to the minister here, to the ministry, and decides to do something, because as you're outlining this, and, to be fair, the English Montreal School Board, compared to the service centers, when you talk about a $570 million cut here, you're representing just a fraction of that. So imagine what this is like across all the other boards across the province.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I mean, CSSDM, which is the largest service center in the province, it has almost the entire island of Montreal is looking at having to cut $95 million. I
Wow.
don't know how any service center, I don't care what size it is, could cut $95 million and then be expected to, not touch any of the services that are affecting the kids. It's an education system. All the services affect kids. You cut somewhere, you're going to have an impact on the education of children.
We'll leave it at that. Joe Ortona, Chair of the English Montreal School Board. Joe, thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Hope we can talk when this is resolved.